So hi everyone, for those who are on and joining us tonight, my name is Alex Austin. I'm a part of Save Porter Ranch. Tonight, I just deeply thank you for everyone who's joining us because this issue has been ongoing, as many of you guys have known. For those who live near the facility and even don't live near the facility, I'm sure many people have suffered in different ways in their health, or their loved one has suffered to some degree. So tonight we have an awesome group of people who are going to go over just more information about why we don't need Aliso Canyon to still be up and running. The facts on the amount of withdrawals that are still occurring within the facility that not many people know about or hear about, unfortunately. And also we're going to go over how it's still affecting our health today and some of the calls of action that we can take. A lot of times when we're kind of coming up against these big entities or these big companies, the fight or the stand against them can feel very helpless at sometimes, or just like an uphill battle. But if we continue and we continue to persevere, things can and will change, and we're confident of that. So we have joining us tonight, some of our speakers include Alex Nagy. She's a part of the Food and Water Watch. We also have Jane Fowler, a part of the Aliso Canyon Alliance, Aliso Canyon Mom Alliance, and Save Porter Ranch. And then lastly, Charles Day, who's a part of XR. So we're very excited to share more information with you guys tonight. Towards the end of our webinar, we're going to have some time for a little Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, you guys should be able to see like a little chat icon at the bottom of your screen, right next to the share screen icon. If you have any questions, go ahead and type your questions in there, and we'll have Alex, the other Alex, be able to answer those for you guys. So without further ado.
All right, can y'all hear me? Okay, great, awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Really excited to see such a good crowd on this webinar, as Alex said. So today, we're going to talk about just what our status of the campaign is, review some health and safety concerns still going on at Aliso Canyon, review the gas pipeline and infrastructure network. So it'll be a crash course on how does the gas system work. We will also talk about why withdrawals at Aliso Canyon have increased, why it's not needed, put that in context of overall energy trends in California, and then finally talk about what we want to accomplish this year, and how you can participate in some of our calls to action. So, as you all know, we've been fighting for the shutdown of Aliso Canyon for the last 4 years. The SOCALGAS Aliso Canyon storage facility is in the North San Fernando Valley, close to the community of Porter Ranch, but really impacted the entire valley and surrounding Simi Valley, Santa Clarita areas when it blew out in 2015. The blowout lasted for 4 months and was the largest gas blowout in US history, released an unprecedented amount of methane, but along with it, all kinds of chemicals and carcinogens and crude oil, etc. So on the left, you see the image of the blowout that was able to be captured. And on the right, you see the real life impacts that this had. People and pets were poisoned, were killed, are still being poisoned, and are still dying as a result of the emissions from that one blowout, but also just the ongoing emissions from that facility that has been ongoing for decades, right? And so it wasn't just this one incident, but it's decades combined that have really made this community a toxic hotspot in Los Angeles County. So You may see yourself in one of these images, and if so, thank you. We have been organizing like crazy to push for the shutdown of Aliso Canyon in the last 4 years. We started when Governor Brown was in office. He was the governor at the time of the blowout. It took him 75 days to declare a state of emergency. And we realized that his sister, Kathleen Brown, sat on the board of Semper Energy, the parent company of SOCALGAS, which is why it was so difficult to get him to move. But we persisted. And as Governor Brown was leaving office, he told his agencies, the California Public Utilities Commission, to plan for shutting down Aliso Canyon in 10 years. So we moved someone who ignored us, whose sister profited from this facility, to saying, yeah, it needs to be shut down, but in 10 years. Then we picked up the ball with Governor Newsom, started campaigning early while he was running for governor. And this photo here and this photo here have been since he was elected. As he was campaigning, we got him to promise many times on video, on record, in papers and articles that he was committed to shutting down Aliso Canyon. And so 2019 was about us organizing with our allies like Sunrise LA and Extinction Rebellion, bringing a lot of new folks into the movement who are taking action on climate into this fight. And we were able to move Governor Newsom in his first year in office to advance what Governor Brown had done and call for the expedited shutdown of Aliso Canyon. We still don't know what expedited means. That hasn't been defined, but he's said it many times on record that 10 years is too long. So big part of our campaign this year is getting him to commit to a timeline. We want to see Aliso Canyon shut down in 1 year. And we're going to talk about why that's doable. We also need to acknowledge, though, that however, since Governor Newsom has taken office, the use of Aliso Canyon has increased dramatically. And even in just this last several months, we've seen an unprecedented use of Aliso Canyon. So there's this duplicity happening here, and we need to hold Governor Newsom accountable in a very big way. So some of you, again, may see yourselves here on this slide, and thank you all for sharing your photos of what you've been going through. And I just really want to emphasize that the increased use of Aliso Canyon leads to the increased sickness and health problems in the community. There's a direct correlation between more gas pumped in and out of Aliso Canyon and health symptoms in the community. So I'd like to pass it over to Jane Fowler if she's on the phone. Jane, as you all may know, has been very active with us here at Food and Water Action and Save Porter Ranch, Aliso Moms Alliance, and has just kind of been helping expose what's been going on in the community in the last several months. Jane, are you there? I don't see her there. So then maybe let me pass it to Kyoko if you're available.
Sorry, I was muted.
Go
Hello?
for it. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Are you talking to me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry. Hi, I'm Jane Fowler. I live in Granada Hills. And for those that don't know me, the gas blowout, it took me out. It was horrible. All the physical problems, my dog dying, my husband being hospitalized. I couldn't function at all. It really affected me. But anyway, fast forward to a few months ago, I was feeling really bad again. And so one day I went onto the gas leak page and I posted, you know, what I was feeling, my symptoms, and up pops various people having symptoms again. And then I forget who it was, but someone had mentioned, oh, you know, they're withdrawing and injecting back in Aliso, which I know. But when you're going through these physical, you know, problems, I forget things. So being reminded of that, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what's happening again. You know, the nausea, eye burning, sore throat constantly, the Aliso cough, itchy, burning skin. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. So there was one day when I was on fire and I was so itchy. I wanted to take my skin off. Like literally, if I could have, I would have. I was completely out of my head, and Alex, don't cringe when I say this, but I actually called the health department, the very corrupt health department, because I was just, you know, you don't know what to do, and I'm so upset, and I want someone to tell me something. So I called Katie Butler, and I left her a message. She never called me back, and she knows me. So on one hand, I felt a little ashamed that I had called, but then on the other hand, I was glad that I did, because I wanted to hear what it feels like, what I was feeling. So it continues, and it's been really bad again. And, you know, I guess the good part is that, you know, now I'm moving, and next week I'm leaving for North Carolina to go and, you know, get some health, you know, under my belt here, and make a plan, because when I live here, I can't focus. Everything is kind of foggy. So I am forced to move. I also think that maybe that my past experience, you know, with the blowout, I'm probably more sensitive. It feels like just, well, I don't know what amount is being released, but whatever amount is being released triggers me. And it seems to be, you know, it's almost every day. So we have to do something about this. And I'm really excited that you guys are, you know, a part of this, and I will be a part of it from afar. So thank you all for helping us with getting Aliso shut down.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Can you all still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, Jane, thank you so much for sharing what you've been going through, and it's been echoed by so many people in the community flocking to social media, talking about why, you know, why are they feeling sick, feeling confused, feeling scared, going through all the same emotions and motions of what they've experienced before. And, you know, I think Jane, a lot of you do know Jane, and so you know just kind of how devastating this whole situation is when one of our best and brightest organizers and activists is so sick that they're leaving. And I know for Jane that this has been a really difficult decision. So Jane, just wanted to show you some love on this webinar and say that we understand and support you and love you, and which is why we need to keep building out this fight to go beyond just the people sickened by this. They really do need our support and our help to get this place shut down, because it is so difficult when you're that sick and that affected to, you know, to just like give up your life for this. And so we need that solidarity. So thank you, Jane. Yeah. So just wanted to continue on here and just kind of give an overview of, you know, what is coming from that facility. The Aliso Canyon storage facility is, I'm going to mute everyone except for myself. I don't know if that worked. Did that work? Can you all still hear me? Okay, great. So Aliso Canyon is classified by the EPA as being the third largest polluter, gas storage polluter in the country. And what does that mean? That means that not only is methane leaking every day, but you have very severe carcinogens like formaldehyde, benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, xylene, the BTEX, known as the BTEX, acrylamide, I think that's just like a fancy name for alcohol, acrolein and ammonia. They're not cancer causing, but they're very impacting to your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, your respiratory system. And even though we know that all of these chemicals are coming off Aliso Canyon at a massive amount, there's still a whole other list of chemicals that have been hidden and refused to be disclosed by SOCALGAS. And every day we find kind of more information about what they knew the community was being exposed to, but never told anyone. in addition to this list, you had crude oil that was coming out from the blowout and raining down on the community. And so all of those things combined, this unprecedented level of toxins is really what jump-started a lot of people's health concerns, but also these chemicals have been leaking from Aliso Canyon long before the blowout and are still leaking today. I also wanted to point out another safety issue, which is just SoCalGas's complete negligence and complete lack of safety culture. The root cause analysis of what caused the blowout was finally released in May of last year. And there were some pretty shocking findings. And so I just wanted to quickly run over that with you. So one was that there were more than 60 well casing leaks at Aliso Canyon before the October 2015 blowout. This is going back to the 1970s when they took over the field. And there was never one single failure investigation conducted by the gas company. So they had no care in the world, was never concerned about why are my wells failing so much. There were also 2 gas blowouts prior to 2015 that SoCalGas did not investigate. And when the 2015 blowout did happen, SoCalGas never did the proper calculations they needed, proper analysis on how to effectively kill the well, which is a term for stopping the blowout, which led them to lead to faulty practices, which led to further destabilization of the well, which is why it took 4 months instead of a week to stop the blowout. So because of SoCalGas's negligence, you saw over 25,000 people displaced from their homes, and the people who couldn't move were exposed to this for 4 months instead of 1 week, which is totally unacceptable. And, SoCalGas, just reiterating, knew about these issues, failed to do anything to prevent them, and preferred to lean on reactive approach to a proactive approach. And we know that as a result, people died, pets died, people are continuing to be poisoned and be ill and driven from their homes. And this is completely unacceptable. So this is who we're dealing with when we're talking about this storage facility, and another very important reason why we need to shut it down and get SoCalGas out of our communities. Another really big risk to the storage facility are earthquakes. So there's an earthquake fault that bisects all 114 gas storage wells at Aliso Canyon. This is the Santa Susana fault, and it can cause catastrophic loss of life if an earthquake erupts there. According to a former SoCalGas storage manager, he went on the record and said this. And this fault line is capable of a 7.3 magnitude earthquake, and very useful to think of that in terms of the size of the Northridge earthquake. This would be 8 Northridge earthquakes. So when I say that Aliso Canyon, all the wells bisect the fault line, this is a really neat picture that shows that. And you can see the wells are drilling very deep down and cross fault lines as they drill down to the oil pools or the shale formations down deep in the earth. And when SoCalGas initially did a seismic analysis on their own, they said that there is no risk to well integrity or well safety if an earthquake were to occur at this storage facility. We found that very hard to believe, so we pressured, and they finally commissioned a proper analysis. And luckily, we have a good friend at CSUN, Dr. Matthew D'Alessio, who's a geologist, and he did an analysis on the seismic study that finally came out. And basically what we found in that analysis is that simulations that were done show that an earthquake's worst case scenario can lead to a blowout 8 times greater than the 2015 blowout. So if an earthquake just big enough occurs, there's a good chance that like we learned earlier from the SoCalGas employee, catastrophic loss of life is a big potential here. So if that's not frightening enough, there's also the risk of fires. And we saw this just last October. We saw communities being woken up at 2, 3 in the morning with the Saddle Ridge fire quickly coming from Sylmar all the way to Porter Ranch. Evacuation orders were put over the entire community. 30,000 people were evacuated in the middle of the night. SOCALGAS employees were evacuated. The facility was shut down, and first responders literally had to go onto the facility to protect it from fires to make sure that it didn't blow up. These are some images caught by news stations just showing, this is the gate here, the front gate to the SOCALGAS Aliso Canyon storage facility. And this is a view at the top at some of their wells here and some of their equipment. Pretty shocking stuff. I know that during the blowout, they said, you know, fire was the biggest risk they had. They were very concerned about it. And here we have Aliso Canyon on fire. Strangely enough, even after the Saddle Ridge fire was put out, there was still a mysterious fire that stayed ablaze at Aliso Canyon for 3 days. And it ended up, I just learned today from some of my colleagues here on the call that this is from off-gassing. There was no equipment there, no reason why this should be on fire for 3 days. And what we found is that there were high levels of benzene at that spot and in the community, benzene emissions after this fire. So more on that. We'll definitely be working to expose more of that later on. Oh, okay, so risks aside, health issues aside, all really, really important reasons why we need to shut Aliso Canyon down now and really underscoring the urgency of this issue. I wanted to just kind of do a little overview of how the gas system works in California and then more specifically in Southern California. So this is the Western North American natural gas pipeline distribution system. 90% of the gas we consume in California comes from out of state, is shipped in on massive pipelines, and you can see that pipeline network here. 10% of the gas we consume actually comes from gas drilling in the Central Valley, and so we consume about 10% of what we produce in state, but the rest of it's imported. And it really comes, you know, the 90% we import really comes from fracked gas from Texas, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, Canada, the works. And so just to really point out that, you know, Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action has been a longtime advocate to ban fracking, just really shows the full spectrum of gas infrastructure, fracked gas infrastructure, and Aliso Canyon is definitely a part of that. So this is the SoCalGas San Diego Gas and Electric System. So this is what it looks like once it comes into California, and it crosses the border in several places in Nevada, Arizona, Mexico. And there are 4 gas storage facilities currently operating here in Southern California. So you have Goleta in Santa Barbara, Ana Rancho in Santa Clarita, Aliso Canyon in the San Fernando Valley, and then the Playa del Rey gas storage facility right here in the Playa area. And the way that the gas system works is that most of our gas, like 90%, right, is imported. And whatever we, like, let's say we have a gas shortage or an oversupply, that's when storage is used. So it's used as a hedging system to keep prices low for big customers like electric generators. It's used there for trading. It's not needed for energy reliability, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So just like SoCalGas let Aliso Canyon completely run down and ignored it till it, you know, blew out, that's how they've treated their pipeline infrastructure as well. And so back in October of 2017, we saw line 235-2 had a big explosion. And so one of the key pipelines bringing in gas from out of state exploded, which had an impact on line 4000. And so that's going to be important to remember when I talk about our energy system. So the main reason why Aliso Canyon, or really any other gas storage facility, is not needed to meet energy demand is simple. The gas pipeline capacity is enough to meet our needs in winter and in the summer. So overall, this pipeline capacity can bring in 6.7 billion cubic feet per day of gas supplies. It turns out that on our hottest day and on our coldest day, we only ever use 3.7 billion cubic feet of gas in summer, and then more in winter, 4.9, because we need it more to heat our homes. In summer, we use it more for electric generation. In winter, we use it more for heating. And the 2018 California Gas Report cited this capacity at 6.7 billion cubic feet. So this is a report that's put together on a every 2 years basis, written by SOCALGAS and the big gas utilities, talking about the gas energy outlook for California. So that's where I got those numbers. And then when these big pipelines were exploded and taken out of service, they were out of service for 2 years, reducing the import capacity by only 0.4 billion cubic feet. So in the grand scheme of things, this was a small hit to the energy system, but SoCalGas acted like the sky was falling and said, if we don't get to Aliso Canyon back online as soon as possible, these pipeline outages are going to lead to blackouts. And where have we heard that before? We've heard that from SoCalGas since the beginning, when they said if they didn't get Aliso Canyon back online right away in the summer of 2016, that we would see 14 days of blackouts, which we never saw. So all in all, these pipelines were out of service for 2 years, starting October 2017 and November 2019, which is a crazy time frame. 2 years is unheard of. On average, nationally, pipelines that are important for energy reliability are repaired within weeks or months, not years. So we felt like because SoCalGas wasn't getting their way to use Aliso Canyon, they were dragging out the maintenance, dragging out the repairs, hoping to put the state in a desperate situation and allow them to use Aliso Canyon more. So taking another step back, just kind of painting the picture of where we've been the last 4 years, because this really has been a 4-year battle of trying to maintain the fact that Aliso Canyon is not needed for energy reliability, all while SoCalGas manufactures these crises or prolongs situations so that they can say, no, we do need it. So in 2016, right after the blowout ended, Aliso Canyon was not ready to go. It was not even close to being approved for any kind of injections or withdrawals. It was just not there yet. And the state energy agencies and the California Public Utilities Commission adopted 31 mitigation measures to improve coordination of the gas system, making sure that we were getting the supplies delivered we needed, improving clean energy technologies, programs like battery storage, demand response, energy efficiency. And additionally, the Public Utilities Commission said Aliso Canyon can only be used as an asset of last resort. When the blowout ended, there was a small buffer of gas that remained in the facility, and it was kept there and basically said, if we need it, if it's an emergency, it's there. And we actually did pretty well. We went that whole summer without needing Aliso Canyon at all. And in 2019, despite the return of these pipelines to the system, the Public Utilities Commission finally weakened the withdrawal protocols of asset last resort to giving SoCalGas more authority to use Aliso Canyon as they please. And the Public Utilities also started claiming something really shocking, which is that the pipeline capacity is at a measly 2.8 billion cubic feet instead of the recognized 6.66 or 6.7 from the California Gas Report. So we are starting to see this picture of, even though the pipelines had been repaired, the Public Utilities Commission weakened the withdrawal protocols and then started shorting the supply numbers all on their own. Very strange. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So don't get overwhelmed by this. I'm going to explain all of it and just really kind of show how Aliso Canyon has been used more and more and more, completely unjustified. So just a quick reminder, right, that the pipeline capacity has always been relatively high. We haven't needed Aliso Canyon. In the summers, it's only been in the winters that we've started to see the use of Aliso Canyon increase, which on its face makes sense because in the winter we use more gas than we do in the summer. But still, according to the Public Utilities Commission, right, all of a sudden, pipeline supplies dramatically dropped to 2.8 billion cubic feet, despite the fact that these other pipelines had been brought online. So it really doesn't make any sense. And so when you track seasonally, winter by winter, since the blowout to today, I want to paint a picture for you. So the first winter we faced without Aliso Canyon, SOCALGAS justified using Aliso Canyon on 2 different days, totaling just 0.5 billion cubic feet of withdrawals. And we called, blackout blackmail on this. We exposed this, took it to the LA Times. They agreed with us that this was not necessary. The LA County did an independent report and found that these withdrawals were unnecessary. And so we thought we had, caught the gas company, but the Public Utilities Commission didn't want to hold them accountable. Then the following winter, we saw a very similar situation unfold again, where instead of 2 days, they increased it to 7 days, where they found this need to justify Aliso Canyon, claimed emergency, claimed cold snaps, and they had to use it. And that ended up totaling 1.33 billion cubic feet. Not a major increase, but still a significant increase. And I'll note that the pipelines that burst in October of 2017. So you would think that if there was a significant energy reliability concern, you would have started seeing that in 2017 to 2018, but you really didn't. It wasn't that different. It's not that different compared to what we then start to see. So SoCalGas didn't get their way. They did not get the withdrawal regulations relaxed. They did not get the PUC to get them to go back to normal operations. And so they started doing a very different thing. They started dramatically increasing their use of Aliso Canyon to say, look at this. This is all emergency scenarios. We're using Aliso Canyon. And the winter of 2018 to 2019 all happened under Governor Newsom. So when he took office, that's when we start to see this ramp up in the use of Aliso. And so by the end of that season, we saw Aliso Canyon use 37 days for a total of 14.086 billion cubic feet, which is over 1,000% increase than the year before. So really extreme, unprecedented. And they were claiming at this time that the pipelines being out were the reason why. But the pipelines were out before, and that wasn't a good enough reason to see this kind of use. So they're really just pointing to anything they can to justify this use. Now we're in the season of winter 2019 to 2020, and we're not all the way through the season yet. Last season, the season ended March 11th of 2019. That was the day we saw the last withdrawals in 2019. This time, we're like barely into February, and we've already seen 36 days of use at Aliso Canyon, and they have plenty more to go, right? They're going to continue to use it, continue to withdraw. They just withdrew from Aliso Canyon yesterday. And I really wanted to compare this to how much had they used Aliso Canyon on the 5th of last year compared to the 5th of this year of February. And you can see that by February of 2019, they had only used Aliso Canyon 13 days, totaling 30.4 billion cubic feet. And February 5th of this year, it's already 36 days at 13 billion cubic feet. So just compared to this time last year, there's already a 381% increase. We're almost close to total of amount of gas they used last season, and we still have about a month left to go. And so this is really, I'm trying to paint a story of the Public Utilities Commission, not putting a check on SoCalGas, not holding them accountable, letting them get away with the unnecessary use of Aliso Canyon, but even going farther, themselves shorting the supply numbers. The PUC is weakening the withdrawal protocols at Aliso Canyon. And as a result, Aliso Canyon, the use of it has gone up significantly. And we all know, based on Jane's testimony, what that's doing to the community. It's continuing to poison the community and make the community feel horrible. Cool. So we're seeing some good questions in the chat. So I'm almost done here, just kind of making the case. So really concerning, and just kind of wanted to put it back in big picture, right? Of like pipeline capacity alone, we have enough gas to meet the needs without using storage. The Public Utilities Commission is now starting to tell a very different story. But on the other side of things, we're starting to see a very different energy trend in California, right? California is the leader on clean energy. We've seen a tremendous amount of shifts in the way we procure energy. For example, right after the gas blowout, we saw at the time some of the biggest battery storage projects deployed in a 6-month period after the blowout by San Diego Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison. We saw gas electric generation decline by 20% across the California electric system in the summer of 2016 alone. So more renewables coming on the grid means we need to burn less gas in our generators. We just saw a whole slew of other, local battery storage projects. LADWP has been stepping up a lot lately with solar projects in Owens Valley. In 2019, there was a solar batteries project passed that led to 400 megawatts of solar and energy to store up to 120 megawatt hours. And what this really means is this project can power 283,000 homes with clean energy across Los Angeles. So that's amazing. And then overall, we're trending towards less reliance on gas as state mandated targets aim for 60% renewables by 2030 and 100% by 2045. The city of LA is also studying how to get to 100% clean energy, and at Food and Water Action and our allies were pushing to get there by 2030 to be in line with the climate science. And then I see Susan posting about Berkeley and 12 other cities that have banned gas, appliances of any kind in new construction. So all of this is really positive and a way that the state is moving off gas and showing these trends. So this is our Governor Newsom, and he really has the power to give us what we want here and fix this mess we're in. And so I want to take a minute to just explain who he is, what he's about. So he was elected in 2018. He had a pretty significant margin of victory, about 3 million votes. Overall, we saw a pretty low voter turnout in California for that race. California population is 40 million. LA County, LA Metropolitan Area County is 10 million people. And so what happens in LA is going to be really important to him. That we're a very important voter base, a very important donor base. And in fact, we've successfully followed him around to fundraisers and galas and other types of things in LA. He frequents LA often. There's also, we've been keeping in mind that Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles and Senator Henry Stern, that represents the Aliso Canyon area, are really important influencers and people that we want to use to support what we're doing and be messengers to the governor, and who have been in the past. Other things to note about Governor Newsom is that his re-election is in 2022, I should say, and politicians tend to finally come through on campaign promises or take really big sweeping actions or do the right thing right before they are re-elected. Just look to Supervisor Catherine Barger. It's an election year, and she finally, since being elected 4 years ago, is supporting the shutdown of Aliso Canyon. So election years are something important to look forward to and to keep in mind. Governor Newsom also wants to be president. He definitely has higher political ambitions. He's very ambitious. So it's important to think about the national stage that he wants to put himself on and how we can make Aliso Canyon a national issue and use that national platform to elevate it. He also oversees the California Public Utilities Commission. He does so by appointing the 5 commissioners, and he's able to hire and fire the executive director of the Public Utilities Commission. So far, his record on the issue, his latest record on the issue, is the letter he sent to the Public Utilities Commission calling for the expedited closure of Aliso Canyon. And while that's really great, and we feel like that's a positive step in the right direction, we're really excited that we were able to move him in 1 year to kind of come out and take that stance. It's not enough. And so, you know, we're optimistic that, you know, even though Governor Newsom still has a ways to go, he's not Governor Brown. He's not going to ignore us and then placate us as he leaves office. He's someone that we can pressure appropriately and move appropriately to do what we need to do. But to do so is going to take a lot of organizing, a lot of power building, more direct actions, more, you know, civil disobedience, more bird dogs. And so that's what we're really excited to engage with all of you on. So finally, just to reiterate, what do we want? We want Governor Newsom to reverse the withdrawal protocols immediately. He can stop this madness. We don't have to wait another month for us to blow past last year's withdrawals. We can stop this now. And we need to put a timeline to shut down Aliso Canyon in 1 year with an executive order. So with that, I will pass it to Charles to share a call to action, and then we'll take questions.
Hi, everyone. This is Charles from XR. Happy to be here tonight. I've only been involved with you guys for a short amount of time, but it feels like there's a lot of momentum right now, and we can really get this done this year. Newsom is publicly committed. We just need to light a fire under his ass to get this across the line, and we are that fire. So I would encourage all of you right now to text Newsom to 69866. So that's this top bullet point right here. This is going to put you in Food and Water Watch's database, and this is how we let you know about all of the actions that we have coming up. Texting actions, call drives, everything that we're going to be doing in the next year, you can find out about if you text to this number, and that's the best way to stay in touch with everyone. Next week, on the 11th, on the anniversary of the shutdown, the blowout ending, there's going to be an event from 7 to 9 a.m. the corner of Tampa Avenue and Rinaldi Street. And you can RSVP there, or just check all the Facebook pages if you don't want to write down that URL, take a photo of it. If you text Newsom to 69866, you'll be getting a text about it in the next few days. Bring a friend, wear red. You can find all the info about that on Facebook. So the other major gas storage facility that Alex mentioned in LA is the Playa del Rey facility. They're smaller than the Aliso Canyon facility. They only store about 1% of the city's gas, but they present a much, much larger health security risk. And we're going to be having a major rally calling on Mayor Garcetti to support shutdown of that facility on February the 13th. Again, RSVP there, or you'll be getting a text about that as well. Check out the Facebook page. We're going to be having a lot more actions in 2020. Democratic National Convention here coming up, a lot of great bird dogging opportunities, a lot of great civil disobedience coming up this month, next month, into April for Earth Day. It's going to be a really busy spring and into the summer when the Democratic National Convention is. So get in the loop. We're excited to hit the street with all of you and get this done this year.
Charles, do you want to cover that part?
Totally happy to. So this is just a wrap up to lodge this in all of your brains. February 11th is going to be the Aliso Canyon rally. February 13th, rally at the Playa del Rey facility. February 19th, Newsom will be at the State of the State in Sacramento. I'm not, Alex, who's gonna be there?
Yeah, I'm actually going up, and if anyone wants to go to Newsom and to the State of the State and bird dog him in Sacramento, we're definitely going to be bringing the Aliso message there, as well as talking about his record on oil drilling, period. Just like withdrawals have increased under his leadership, so have the permitting of oil wells. So it's going to be kind of a 2-4 fossil fuels climate message. And
this is obviously a very busy month with the primary coming up. We're going to have a lot of presidential candidates in the state, so there are going to be a lot of opportunities to nail these people down, to get our message out, and to get them on record committing to things. And late March, we're going to be doing a Newsom Accountability Town Hall, and I think we're going to have a training before that, a couple days before that in March, so stay tuned for more information about that.
Right on. Awesome. So now's the time that we'll take questions. And I saw a couple of questions in the chat, so let me look at those. I think I saw a question from Matt about, did PUC account for that big difference? No, and I think they've been incredibly hostile towards us and our questions and trying to expose the policy that they're taking on SOCALGAS, which is to let them basically get away with keeping their pipelines offline for 2 years. We did a lot of letter writing and advocacy and meetings with staff, trying to say, like, why don't you demand a return to service date? Why are you allowing, the increased use of Aliso Canyon, and trying to point to all of that? And they basically every single time excused it away. And then would be openly hostile about it. I see Vic, go ahead.
Where does this hostility happen? Like what, in emails, meetings?
Yeah, in meetings, and then notably there was one energy reliability workshop at the AQMD headquarters that we went to, and Edward Randolph, he's the Energy Division Director for the Public Utilities Commission. He was just very hostile, didn't like being put on the spot, was like visibly cranky, snippety, like just really showing a lot of outward aggression for being questioned on this.
Because they know they're full of it.
Yes. I see Vicky's question here about, does that mean the outgoing pipes are leaking? I think it's safe to assume that all of their pipes are leaking, all of their infrastructure is leaking. I don't have exact data or references on that outside of Glenn Lefevers, who was also another storage manager at the Aliso Canyon facility, said on average that facility is leaking twice per day. And I'm sure that number goes up when it's actually in use. Pipes are leaking, always going to leak too. So I think any increased use of Aliso Canyon leads to increased methane leakage and emissions. I see a question here from Brandy about, will we have access to the slides after the webinar? Absolutely. I know all of you who emailed or who signed up, I have your email, so I will be sending you this recording as well as the slides. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Oh, has anyone found out exactly what they are decontaminating in Limekiln Canyon? What chemicals found? And then when does the EDF satellite come back online that will track methane leaks around the globe? I don't know the question to the latter or the former. If someone does, please answer. I will say, though, that EDF is someone who's actually on my contact to-do list, and they're someone that have, not been fully in support of the shutdown of Aliso Canyon, but I think a lot has changed since Governor Newsom came out and took action, so hoping to reconnect with them and really bring them on the shutdown train. So I can ask about that, Susan, and get back to you. So are there any other questions about the presentation or about what's going on, about the actions coming up?
Yeah, you may have sort of answered this, but there can't be that big a difference in the pipeline availability and them not saying what happened. Are they just ignoring that?
Yeah, and they are, and there's a lot of different ways that they count the gas that's available in the pipeline supplies. And I'll give you an example, but it's going to take a little bit of explaining. So basically, core customers, these are your everyday household users. We order gas that's what's called firm capacity. And so this means that it's a guaranteed supply that's being delivered on the pipeline. Because it's guaranteed supply, we pay a very heavy premium to transmit that gas. Then you have what's called non-core customers. And these are customers like refineries, power plants, and they get what you call non-firm capacity, which means that they are paying for interruptible supply. So if there's ever, a pipeline explosion, or, a pipeline freezes somewhere in Wyoming and can't deliver gas, those are the customers that are cut first. And as a result, they pay way less gas. So sometimes the way the PUC fudges the numbers is that they only count the core customers or the firm supply. They don't look at the whole picture. Even though the pipelines are able to bring in firm plus non-firm capacity, it's a much bigger number. They short it intentionally by saying we only have what's here to deliver to core customers on a firm capacity basis. So that's some of the examples of how they manipulate the data, and you really have to know the lingo and read the fine print to catch that stuff. And it's just completely disingenuous. And so they base their models on these short supply scenarios, but then these shorted supply numbers, but then they generalize it to their entire customer base, which includes households and refineries and power plants. So that's one way they do it, and they're plainly doing it, and they don't care at all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. From Sarah, is there data available on local air quality, and are there any resources to check air in our homes for potential pollutants? That's a very good question. And there's a $2 million available to have air quality monitors installed in the Port Ranch and surrounding areas. But I think there's been a lot of developments on that. So I think I'll pass that to someone on this call who can answer that better. Anyone there who can speak up?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was about air quality monitoring that's happening in the community. Is there any data available? And what are some opportunities to check for pollutants in the homes if somebody wants to do their own air quality monitor?
Susan, this is Craig here. Do you want to shed any light on that and what you fought so hard for the air monitoring? And I can shed some light on if you're not aware of why it is still delayed. And you are muted right now, Susan. Susan, we still don't hear you. You're still muted. Bottom left. Thank you.
Okay. So for those who don't know, I moved to Hawaii last July, so I'm no longer there. And while I was there, I was at the Port Ranch Neighborhood Council and had an ad hoc committee to try to get, something for air quality monitoring. As it turned out, the settlement between the city of LA, the county of LA, all the air regulators, and SOCALGAS, the settlement of that lawsuit, not the personal lawsuits, that lawsuit called for, I think they put aside, $2 million for air quality monitors and $25 million for a health study, I believe. And that's where I left it. I left, was like, that ad hoc was dissolved because an ad hoc has one purpose and one purpose only. And when you get that, and we got funding for air quality monitors, it was dissolved. So it was up to the neighborhood council to create a new committee or whatever. And my understanding is they've created a new ad hoc committee, or they're going to. That's all I know.
They had one on the agenda to discuss that, but hopefully that meeting got canceled, so hopefully it's coming up next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. As the neighborhood council is trying to reform something, Susan. What is
the settlement itself actually calls for input from the community, so
right?
You really do want that because the settlement calls for that, and people should have input. So
what is? You're right, and thanks again for fighting so hard for that. It's $3 million, but it's to be shared. It's subtle in the language. The $3 million is to be shared in another environmental justice area.
And that has not been spelled out, has it?
Pardon me?
That division has not been spelled out. It's not spelled out in the settlement.
Right, it's not. So it's vague. Yeah. What's also vague in the settlement was who exactly is in charge and is supposed to see this through.
Right.
So what is really, really unfortunate and sad is the folks that it's supposed to be AQMD and well, for sure AQMD, and there's some other agency that's noted, and I just don't recall off the top of my head, in the consent decree. They have done virtually nothing to move this forward that the community is aware of. This has come up a couple of times in the health study group, the community advisory group, and we're just astonished that no one's moving this ball forward. We've asked public health to investigate, and they're coming up rather empty. Issam Najim, the president of the neighborhood council, described a phone conversation he had with state's attorneys, county attorney, county council, and they were completely confused of who is supposed to run with this and do this. I've run into folks at Argos who are like, if this just continues to drag on, it has been his experience that those regulator and entities will simply just do nothing and absorb the funding and put it into their general budget. So
that's a possibility. I wish someone would step up. I can't. I'm 2,000 miles away, so
right.
I'm no longer a resident.
Right, and again, thank you, Susan, for everything that you did.
Council meeting and say what's the status and get that going again. I mean, when you talk to people, like when we had the AQMD on that committee and public health, and Jared came, and Kevin Taylor for a while from Senator Stern's office, and yeah, you got to get people to the table, and someone's got to organize it. And to do this all the time is not real productive. I hope somebody steps up, but I understand that's on the agenda for the next meeting or something at Portage Ranch Neighborhood Council, or they're going to form the committee again. That's my understanding.
Yeah, that's what I've read here from Assad, who commented in the chat. We don't have one yet, but we're planning in the next meeting to assign a person immediately. He said, yes, it is the plan for the PRNC.
Okay.
So there's one final question I just wanted to address. One was from Brandy. Has anyone tried to push a law that requires companies to cause environmental and public disasters to reveal the chemicals they release? That's been an ongoing battle as well. I can speak specifically to this Aliso Canyon gas storage facility issues. Senator Stern was able to pass a bill, I think it was last year, that required chemical disclosure at gas storage facilities. And we've been pushing the county health department, the LA County Board of Supervisors as well, to use their subpoena power to get the full chemical disclosure at Aliso. So that's just an ongoing battle as well. They don't want us to know what people were poisoned with.
That Stern bill,
Mm-hmm.
It's still allowed, because I think they can't get around it because it's a federal law, that there's still the trade secret protection that is allowed by Stern's bill.
Jeez. Well, there's
but there's other better disclosure rules in there, but still they run into that roadblock.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your time. It is 8:33. I want to be respectful of your time and just thank you all so much for hopping on to learn about the craziness that's been ensuing. around Aliso Canyon, the increased use, why we're still very confident that we don't need Aliso Canyon or any other gas storage facility for that matter. But we have a really big battle ahead of us with the PUC being as corrupt as they are, clearly in bed with SoCalGas. We really need Governor Newsom to step up and show leadership. And we've shown in the last year alone that with the right amount of pressure, we can get it done. We can move him. And so we really want to win this year. We want to win this timeline. We want to win a withdrawal reversal. And that all starts with us taking action. So we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, the 11th, for the rally, and we'll get it started. So thank you everyone for your time, and I will be sending around the webinar recording as well as the slides after we're done here.
Alexandra, I'd just like to say, this is Annalisa, that 2 gas storage fields have been shut down. They're in Montebello and Whittier. And the Montebello field, they've been withdrawing gas to the point where they needed to get down to their cushion gas level, and then the whole field would be abandoned. Whittier is pretty well abandoned, but it's a good model to see how the Public Utilities Commission takes care of all the surface facilities and clear them. I can tell you that I'm almost positive that the Dogger or Cal Jim has not abandoned the wells.
Yeah, thank you for speaking up about that, Annalise. It's so good that you're on the call, and I definitely still want to follow up with you for lunch or coffee and talk about all of that. But you're right, there is a precedent for shutting down gas storage facilities in California, and it's something we need to look to show that it can be done and that it will be done again. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night. We'll be seeing each other.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks.